in a very real way. This represents the journey of life. Each strand of life is not necessarily beautiful or easy to work with, or even what one wants. On the other hand, each strand viewed positively, appreciated, and worked with can weave a life that is beautiful to look at and fun to have. So I named it the Ring of Life. This quote came from one of many patrons who purchased one of Joe Grant's very own puzzle rings. Starting in 1947, he designed and crafted these rings for over 60 years. He continued to do so up till a few months before he passed away, at the age of 102. He took inspiration from similar designs he saw in Egypt during his time as the personal pilot for King Abdulaziz, the King of Saudi Arabia. This is the story of my grandfather, or as I knew him, my Opa. The year is 1945. President Franklin D. Roosevelt meets with Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin to negotiate the shape of the post-World War II world. After the meeting, President Roosevelt seeks to establish relationships with leaders around the world that hold much-needed resources. The first among them is the man who spent 30 years reunifying the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz. They meet aboard a U.S. Navy vessel, the USS Quincy. It's recorded that the two leaders seemed to grow fond of each other during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, President Roosevelt gifted King Abdulaziz an airplane to commemorate their new friendship. This airplane was the most advanced aircraft at the time, designed to fly many passengers for large distances in comfort. It was a DC-3. The only missing piece was an experienced pilot to fly the aircraft for the king. That pilot was my Opa.
It was a really neat thing when he was originally over in Saudi Arabia, when he started flying over there. The king of Saudi Arabia, my dad was the one who told the king, he said, you should, for commerce, you should start an airline and subsidize it and make it so it's inexpensive travel throughout all the towns. Because Saudi Arabia is about half the size of the United States, it's big. And he said, and that'll help commerce a lot. And the king liked the idea. And so my dad started building the airline, and the king was very thankful. So he gave my dad a burlap bag full of gold as a gift. And my dad distributed it evenly amongst everybody who worked in the airline. And then he gave a whole burlap bag full of silver. And my dad did the same thing all over again. Well, in their culture, what he did was insulting, because that was a gift to him, it was supposed to be for him. And so the king called him in. He said, you gave away my gift. He goes, I did. He said, the reason why I did is because I'm only one cog in the wheel. He said, it takes the team to make it all work. It's not just because of me, I'm only one person. It's because of the whole team. Later in 1947, they offered him a job managing the new airline, but he wanted to continue to fly. He moved back to the US, where he worked for the TWA. Even though he continued to fly, he was inspired by rings he saw in the Middle East that could come apart. So he started his own jewelry business. You know, we grew with the business in our house. So I believe we had 37 jewelers, a staff of 37 or so working in the house at one point, in the house. And so there was always one workbench there for me. And we manufactured the puzzle ring as an example. We made one for Elvis Presley. We made one for John F. Kennedy. I was a little boy when all that happened, but my dad did all that. His jewelry business continued to grow for some time, even opening their own store in Stamford, Connecticut. He found a love for making jewelry, and when he retired from the TWA in 1968, he continued to run his store alongside his son, Ed. In 2006, at the age of 98, the leaders of Saudi Arabia found out that my grandfather was still alive and reached out to him, asking if he could come to Saudi Arabia to meet with members of the royal family.
I understood later that Joe came to Saudi in 2006, met some of the princes, including I think my father, and got awarded by King Abdullah at that time, the King Abdulaziz medal, which he was given in a ceremony by Ambassador Adil al-Jubair in Washington, D.C. He came 2009 here. I organized a full program for him. He met with King Abdullah, who loved meeting him. King Abdullah awarded him things that he thought he deserved. And then he met some of the princes that were here. He met with Prince Bandar, my uncle, who is an older gentleman who really contributed quite a bit of the story of your grandfather.
Later that same year, he was invited to be an honorary guest at the largest air show in the world, held in Oshkosh, Wisconsin every year. He attended it with my father, Ed, and His Royal Highness, Prince Sultan bin Salman bin Abdulaziz.
One of the wonderful instances in my life was when we rented a DC-3, after this coming to Saudi and all that stuff, we in the States took him from Appleton Airport to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where I go every year to attend AirVenture. They gave us a podium, and I made a speech, he made a speech. Oshkosh was a very definitive event because people loved him. We launched his book. He spoke to a lot of people. He was busy just enjoying life. So in Oshkosh at the gala night where Harrison Ford, the famous movie star, a great guy, he was also a pilot. He was emceeing the whole event, the gala night at Oshkosh. We got on the stage, I introduced, and he made speeches, and they gave him an honoring award and so on. And he met a lot of people. Everybody wanted to speak to him, and we have a lot of pictures about that.
My father says that my hope sprang to life during his time at the air show. However, just a few months after the air show, his health started to deteriorate. Then, in 2010, he passed away at the age of 102 in his own home. In his last few years, many newspapers wrote about him, retelling the legacy that he left on this earth. My grandfather touched the hearts of many throughout his century on this planet. Every time someone spoke of him, they mentioned how he did everything with a smile. He was a kind and giving soul who felt we were all placed on this earth to help one another. All these stories I hear describe him as a legend. I'm proud he was my Opa.